the Ignite panel. Now we all have our seats. Thank you all so much for joining this panel discussion. It's so wonderful for all of you to be here. So we're going to start by talking about media revenue and media revenue models. And so media revenue models are transforming. And instead of relying mainly on advertisements, we're seeing a major diversification of approaches. Some media brands are moving to subscription-first models, others are doing affiliate revenue, communities, events, or some combination of all of the above. How should media brands be thinking about the future of their revenue models? Kinda, why don't you get us started?
Thanks, Nicole, and thanks for the LEAP organizers for having me here today. So, absolutely, for us at Twitter, from an ad revenue perspective, is going to continue for the medium to long term to be the main driver of the business. Having said that, we are very interested and very keen into being key in the transformation that you talked about, and how media brands, how publishers, how partners basically monetize. We realize that uplift and enhance the quality of content, there needs to be multiple ways of incentivizing partners. And when I talk about partners, that means creators, that means authors, that means publishers, media brands, broadcasters. And for that purpose, we basically made a series of announcements, product announcements, that helps us in that direction. I'm going to mention a few. One is a feature that we launched late last year called Super Follows. And Super Follows is basically a subscription feature that allows a creator or a publisher or a partner to have a subset of their content available at a subscription fee as opposed to the rest of the content that is available free to all. So let's say I'm the New York Times, I can have some of the content, like could it be videos or articles, newsletters, or spaces available at a subscription fee, like a $4.99 per month or whatever. So that's one. The next one is also something that we've launched. There is actually a version of Twitter called Twitter Blue, currently in beta in some of the markets, not yet in this region. And Twitter Blue is a subscription product that allows, for example, users to access articles from certain publishers that are ad-free. So you scroll through articles ad-free. It allows you to bookmark and some other features. We realize it's very important to help creators, so we launched a feature called Tip, which is basically allowing fans and users to tip creators to help elevate the quality of the content that's out there. And finally, we talked about events, and so in terms of events, I think there's multiple ways to help basically compensate moderators, people who put that together. So we launched Twitter Spaces, which is our live audio conversation last year, and then later we launched what we call ticketed spaces. Ticketed spaces is a way for users to access a space at an event. So it could be a panel like this one, but is accessible for users at a cost. And these are some of the ways that we're experimenting with and evolving to see how we can basically add this incremental revenue opportunities for publishers, for creators, and for partners.
Wow, that is incredible. What do you think about that, Ali?
I think content consumption habits have been changing faster than ever the past couple of years, and all media companies need to learn how to adapt. And the reality is that we all compete for the time dedicated to a viewer to a certain platform. And given the versatility of the ecosystem, I don't believe there is one suitable business model. I think it's going to be trying for the platforms to define what's the best way for them to engage with their consumers, with their fans, with the viewers, and find economical models around that. And content will remain key for that, any type of content. And this is where we believe Warner Media, for example, is very well suited, having great brands, having great content pipeline to always attract new viewers.
So very well said. So what can media firms and advertisers do to join the conversation in the metaverse and other platforms in a very authentic way? How can they use technology to be present and helpful in the moments that matter for individual audience members? So let's start with you, Chris.
I'm going to put my hand up and say the truth is I don't know, because it's too new. And one of the things that we are always so fearful of saying is I haven't got a clue yet, and that's fine. The truth is that if anyone's telling you I have the playbook for metaverse, they're either a fraud, a liar, or, you know, so the truth is these mediums are so new. And look, there is a difference in media between something that's great as a consumer media. That doesn't always mean it's a great ad product. You know, I'm from a media agency, and my company helps, we use media for advertising purposes, right, to sell products. And it's not always the case that a great medium for a consumer makes a great ad product. So when it comes to something like the metaverse, it's still too new, it's still really, really exciting, but I don't think we've developed those grooves yet that allows us to know, is this going to be a really, really impactful medium that helps us promote and sell products? Is it the new TV? No one knows that yet.
What do you think about that, Mohammed?
Yeah, so people behavior is changing, and we need to follow that all the time. So, for example, right now on YouTube, we can have a 15-second or 20-second short video that we can shoot with our mobile phone. In the past, when we wanted to create content, we have to have a big setup, it's complicated, we need to be ready. Same as with the podcasting, for example. If I wanted to have like an audio podcast and have my friends join in, and we go live at the same time from different location, it would be a hassle. It's a complicated setup. Right now, for example, on Twitter, I can go in a space with a click of a button. These new features, this platform made it easier for us to create content. And that gave us more ways to engage with the audience and include the brands with us. The traditional way of advertising is changing. We are talking with brands right now, creating creative ideas to engage with the user. We don't have to insult them. They know what's advertising and what's not. But we need to make them engaged. We need to make it fun. For example, we can talk with the brand and do, for example, an esports online tournament with the fans, endorsed by the brand itself. It's fun, it's engaging, and it's also beneficial for the brand. So the way that we do advertising is changing. We have more diversity now, we have more ways to do it, and it's more fun and engaging.
That's incredible. So we're seeing more methods of engagement more and more every day. And that leads me to my next question, which is basically types of media are converging, like music, video, news, social, you name it, all in one big cauldron where it's difficult to separate one from the other. So how does this affect the business structure of entertainment? And does this herald a new, less siloed, and more interconnected media landscape? Tariq, what do you think?
So I'd like to start by, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be at Leap. Really enjoyed it so far. So let me I'll take a lead from what Mohammed was saying in terms of when you look at the example that he gave, you found that he referenced shorts and then referenced spaces, right? An opportunity that exists on Twitter, something that exists on YouTube and across different platforms. And I think that's at the heart, of the best way to answer your question. So if you look at YouTube, we have multi-channel networks, right? So there are third-party service providers that support our creators, our artists, our media companies, and they help them on monetization, they help them with building audiences, they help them with, claims and copyright issues that they may have. And these are multi-channel networks that were born on YouTube, right? These are businesses that were created and born on YouTube, and I'm really happy to see some of them actually within the audience. And that changed. So as you saw that conversion, as you had other platforms that were coming in that were providing opportunities for media brands and for creators to onboard onto them, they turned from multi-channel networks to multi-platform networks, right? So I'm answering it in a different way. As you see how they've evolved, because they cater to artists, creators, and media cos, right? Media companies. That shift is then very similar to what we're seeing in the media landscape, right? So yeah, I think we're going to continue to see that. I don't think we're at the tail end of it. We don't know where it's going to go in terms of metaverse and what the next experience is going to look like. But I think from a platform standpoint, it's very important for us to continue to listen, engage with our creators and our media companies, and make sure that we're providing them with the right tools to be able to tell their stories. And that's why We finally saw shorts come to life at the tail end of last year with the $100 million fund that was announced, which Mina thankfully is a part of. So there's a lot of that also happening, and I believe that 2022 is going to be a great year.
Incredible.
Inshallah.
I'd love to hear what you have to say, Kinda.
So like in short, gone are the days where content can exist in one format and in one destination. And I know your question was more on entertainment, but I'm going to take sports as an example. Even when the case of OTTs and pay TV, it's no longer about just the football match. It's about what people are talking about when they're watching the football match, what people are predicting is going to happen before the football match. If you miss the football match, the short videos and highlights that you're going to watch to basically catch up. And another format would be, again, I'm going to talk about Twitter Spaces, like commentary post the match or pre the match, audio conversations about what happened or what might happen in the match. In fact, just a couple of days ago, just to let you know how big that sphere is, just a couple of days ago in Saudi, there was a Twitter space about, I'm not very familiar with who the players are when it comes to Saudi League, so I'm sorry about that, but about a player in Al Shabab club and him potentially transferring to Al Hilal club, or maybe he has transferred, but that space had 120,000 concurrent users. That's massive. That's just not even news about a particular match, that's news about a particular player who is apparently very controversial. So that just to show you that one format, one destination is no longer viable, and media brands needs to realize that and basically restructure the investment to cater to that, because that does not only help them with engagement, but also help them with ancillary revenue opportunities.
Absolutely. That's something that all of us should take away from this conversation. And Mohammed, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think one good example of the things that you mentioned earlier is Sony, because Sony is into gaming. They have Sony Music, they have Sony Pictures. Sony Pictures and Sony Music together, they acquired Funimation. It's the biggest distributor of East Asian animations in the West, and they then acquired Crunchyroll, which Crunchyroll is the Netflix of animation too. So they also use their IP in a good way to mix music, movies, and games together. For example, they use the IP that they own for Spider-Man to make the movie into a game. It's a completely different story, but they use the IP. They created one of the most successful superhero games of all time, and then they will release the movies and the games in a short window of time, so people's interest will be aligned for both projects. And then also they use their Uncharted gaming IP, and they are releasing a movie this month, okay, starring Tom Holland, and it's going to be popular because people love the game, people love the characters and the characters of the game, the actors themselves. So Sony is combining their strength in each different media type, okay, to create something big, to create something interconnected, to make the most success, okay, where others can't do the same.
That's truly, truly fascinating. And so when we talk about creators today, anyone can be a creator and get paid for it, right? But this is creating a lot of incredible opportunities for creators. How should media brands be engaging in a more meaningful way with the ecosystem of new creators? Chris, let's start with you.
I think this is a really interesting topic because it's quite topical now, right? You have a lot of really interesting content creators who are trying to talk in a really, really authentic way, but then are finding that when they are authentic, they develop huge audiences, but then brands might move away because what they're saying is controversial. And on the other hand, you have traditional brands that are being a bit staid and boring, but their numbers are dwindling. So if you're a brand, you've got to play this really interesting tightrope act, which is, I know my audience is shifting here. Like, look at Joe Rogan, right? He moved to Spotify, but when he was on YouTube, he himself, as a single entity, is bigger than CNN. But he's controversial. So brands have to tread this fine line, which is the reach is there, but do I want my content to be aligned there? So you have to find those. You have to find that overlap where you get really, really good reach, good media effectiveness, and the content is aligned with your brand. And so like our company at Omnicom, one of the things that we're doing is focusing a lot more on trying to find or do what we call brand aligned content, not just brand safe, but brand aligned. And that's becoming increasingly difficult because gone are the days, the halcyon days of TV where you could run a spot and hit 30 million people and you knew the content was going to be professionally made. So it's difficult. But if you put their effort in and you really understand your brand and you find those content creators that are authentic and that fit your brand's values, then there's opportunity there.
What do you think about that, Ali?
First thing, it's great to see that content creation is becoming much more accessible. So you have much more and more storytellers and they're able to provide and share the stories. And I think this is an incredible opportunity for studios, media companies to have a great talent pool, right? To access those talents, to share stories. And that's an opportunity for this region where there is so many stories which are yet to be told, right? So this is number one. Number two, the way we consume content in the past decade has evolved so much. We different screens, different type of content. In a single day, we watch more content than ever before, right? So we are watching content, maybe short form created by amateurs, moving to vlogs on topics that we like, and maybe to a TV show or a movie. And the role for media platform is to provide a destination for viewers to watch that content, to engage. The role is to provide very strong stories, and most importantly is to ensure that it gives space to those young creators to be heard. And the media companies with the decades of experience they have in creating stories and creating brand are the perfect, I would say, partners for those new creators to create new stories and to create new stories for those generations.
Tarek, I saw you nodding your head a few times, but you have to think about that.
Yeah, I was just thinking through everything that's been said and trying to find something meaningful that I can share with the audience. I think a good way to look at it is to share an example of how we've seen a brand work with creators, and in this instance, it touches on both. So it's sports and gaming, right? So we saw Nivea Men work with Nasuhi, a sports commentator and content creator that exists on YouTube, also very active on Shorts, and UAE Skills, focused on gaming, come together, do multiple interviews, engage with the product, have authentic, candid conversations with celebrities within their space, launch a competition, a gaming competition. I think we're referencing that earlier, which we see a lot of happening on YouTube, that resonated really well with their audience. I think the other thing that's very important for us to note, that it's not just looking at it from a brand perspective, it has to make sense for the creator. Because the creators invest a lot of time and effort and money to build their communities, and to do that in an authentic way and to share with them, content that adds value to those audiences. So I would say that brands, in working with creators, should always give them the space, because they know their audience, right? They know how to engage with them, and trust them to do the right thing, right? Because it's not just the brand that's there, it's also the creator's brand, and it's their livelihood, right? These are not just creators. I look at them as creative entrepreneurs, right? It's that whole new ecosystem that we're seeing. We saw that over the last 20 years, if we want to talk Internet 1.0, to where we are today. And we've seen a lot of the support that's been extended across the startup ecosystem, whether it be through governments or accelerators and incubators. But the community came around that, right? And the industry came around it. And we're seeing great success. I believe that what's next in store for us is looking at those creative entrepreneurs, not just creators, right? But these are entrepreneurs. These are founders right here, right? Founders of businesses that have built legacies, right? They're legends, and as far as I'm concerned, in terms of the examples they're setting for the young audience, which we have a lot of in our region. And I think it's time that we give them the rightful space and attention. So brands also need to understand, and I'll conclude with that, more about what the creators are doing and why they're doing it, right? Because it is authentic.
I couldn't agree with you more. I'd love to hear your expertise on this, Kinda.
I'd like to take a little bit of a different approach. First of all, I agree it's about authenticity and relevance, but I'd like to talk about creators versus the more traditional media. And I think that it's not either or, but there's a place where the two worlds can collide and both coexist profitably. And we've seen some of the examples in this region where creators have started on YouTube and they made it to the big screen, for example. And, or actually a lot of our partners, for example, a lot of the publishers, traditional publishers that we work with, are working more and more with creators that have the audience, that have the relevance, that have the authenticity to contribute to the content that they make, and that by itself is very attractive to brands. So there is room for both to coexist. And finally, from our perspective, we are looking at ways of how to prioritize creators. I talked a little bit earlier about ways that they can monetize their content, but also like more and more creative tools that help them basically elevate the quality of the content and be more creative. The tools that help them with being more creative and on the platform. So.
Absolutely. Now we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about gaming. So gaming is one of the most important mediums in the world, so much so that Netflix said that Fortnite was one of its biggest competitors. But gaming is also fusing with many other types of entertainment, like music. How much more will gaming and the kind of expertise that goes into creating games be an integral part of media companies' futures? What do you think about that, Mohammed?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting to people. Why would Netflix say that Fortnite is one of their biggest competitors? At the end, it's a war for screen time on your mobile phone. We all spend a lot of time on our mobile phones. So if people are spending more of that time on Fortnite instead of watching or streaming videos on Netflix, they know that Fortnite is competing with them. It's, it's one world at the end. It's all forms of entertainment. But there is a reason why gaming is the most fun and most loved form of entertainment, because it's interactive, it's fun. People want to engage with each other. But Netflix knows that, and that's why Netflix actually launched their gaming services in the app, in the same app that you stream videos. Now you can play games. And they said many times that they're serious about their gaming content and they want to engage gamers. One of the strategies that they did to attract gamers to their network is they went and made movies and animated series based on popular video games like The Witcher, like Castlevania, and they were very successful. So gamers are there, gamers are using Netflix. So how about I put the games themselves on Netflix so I can have the gamers stay more on Netflix? So it's a war of creating content, it's a war for screen time. Everyone's trying to do, if gaming is popular, I'll do gaming in my network. So everyone is engaged in this. It's a form of media, but even hardware companies, tech companies, they are going to go into this because gaming is popular, gaming is evolving. We have many ways of playing games right now. No one would imagine, maybe 10 years ago, that you can play a game like Fortnite on your mobile phone. That's something that I only play on my TV. And also, we did not expect to, play social media videos on our TV or have a service like Netflix many years ago. If I can pick any movie I want at any time and use it on my TV. So it's screen time, whether it's on TV, whether it's on mobile phone. So gaming will be an integral part of many companies going forward. All the big companies are involved one way or another in gaming. And I think that's going to continue and even become bigger in the next few years.
That's really interesting, and I never quite thought of it that way. So what really does the future of advertising look like? So early web ads were basically like magazine pages on a screen. So are we at a point where the nature of advertising will evolve into something we can't imagine today? It certainly can't stay the same. Ali, what do you think?
If I can tell you what advertising will look like in 10 years, honestly, I would be surprised. But one thing is for sure is that consumer habits and technology is evolving very fast, and technology historically has been a big enabler for advertising. And you know, big questions such as what's going to be the future, or augmented reality, virtual reality, or even metaverse are big question marks. How they will impact our lives, and therefore how that will impact or could impact advertising. One thing is for sure is that advertising is here to stay, and the importance of advertising will keep on growing. With a simple reason is that we've never been exposed to so many brands. And those brands need to be visible. They need to connect with the audience. They need to tell a story to be remembered. And that's going to be through advertising. So advertising platforms and publishers will need to shift, and they started doing so, from being just windows to being solution providers, right? And providing solutions through data analytics, through actionable insights, really being able to help brands to achieve their objectives. And technology will come into that, you know, slowly, based on consumer acceptance. One thing, what I believe will become even more critical is the creativity. So what's the story, what's the creative, what are created to advertise, so what the consumer is going to remember. Because at the end of the day, if the consumer doesn't remember, the advertising campaigns are not necessarily successful.
Absolutely. And Chris, I would love to hear what you have to say.
Okay, so you're talking about the future. Before I answer that, I'm going to look to the past. One of the heroes of advertising is Bill Bernbach of DDB. So he's one of the great ad men. And one of his famous lines talks about the unchanging man. And the warning he was giving us is to say, listen, media changes, the world changes around us, but human beings don't. The things that impact us, our feelings, what causes us to buy, human beings have not fundamentally changed. We change on timelines that are over thousands of years, whereas media now changes day by day. So when you're thinking about what does advertising is storytelling, it's the art of persuasion, getting people to buy stuff through pictures, sounds, and words, right? The consumer hasn't changed. You might say, oh, our attention spans have changed. Yeah, they've changed because the media we're consuming changes, but who you are as a human being, in your soul and your mind, is the same. So the principles about how you persuade people to buy stuff hasn't changed. So that's the first thing you do. You look to the past and say, what are some of the fundamental lessons? Bezos says, don't tell me about what's going to change, tell me about what's going to stay the same. What's going to stay the same is a human being. Now, when you look at the media channels that are available, that are being consumed, they are fundamentally changing, right? So you're trying to tell stories using advertising, and in the past, you would have a 30-second spot or a 60-second spot on TV, which held people's attention. Now, we don't have that luxury anymore. So, and also the way that you measure advertising is changing too. So one of the things that we're really paying a lot of attention to at Omnicom, the company I work for, is we're looking at all the different media platforms, and we're saying, yes, they all have different ad products that command reach, and you can measure frequency. But the one thing that we're now starting to look at is something called attention. And what I mean by attention is not all ads are created equal, in that you have certain ad platforms that are of the same size, but that little ad spot, that small window that you have to make a slight change in someone's mind about how they feel or think about your brand is different. And what we're seeing now is we're doing a lot of original research in the field of attention, where we use eye tracking technology to measure how much active or passive attention people are paying when they spend time on Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, on the open internet. And it's surprising the differences that you see. So I think for me, when it comes to the future of media planning, that's where our attention is now shifting, to say, look, and this research has resulted in our clients shifting budget from different channels that they thought were on the surface performing really well, but they had that you have choices to make. You can say, I can put my money here or here, and they seem on the surface to be very similar ad platforms. But when you look at the amount of seconds that each ad unit commands, there is a big difference. YouTube is a great example of this, which is it's a platform that does command a lot of attention. So that's why it's a great branding medium. But you have other platforms that on the surface look like they're enormous. They're great consumer platforms. They're good for the consumer. But when it comes to selling ads or pushing ads that are effective, maybe not quite as good.
So that was such a perfect way to sum up this conversation. And so thank you so much, Chris, and thank you so much, panelists. So digital disruption and the future of media. Let's give our panelists a hand.